Hello and welcome to our next VidCon fireside chat. Our topic for this chat is gaming in the attention economy. My name is Alexander Lee. I am a reporter covering gaming, esports, and the Metaverse for Digiday. And I am very excited to be speaking to Regi Cash for this talk. Reggie is the CEO of the digital studio Three Black Dot, which is known for producing Hollywood films such as Queen and Slim, in addition to a whole host of gaming-based content such as Gaming While Black and the series Alpha Betas. So, with that said, Reggie, please, the floor is yours. I'll give you a chance to introduce yourself and talk a little bit about your work.
Alex, thanks for having me. It's a pleasure to be here. It's coming into the fourth quarter for us. It's really our busiest time of the year, but things are so just lots of exciting things going on right now. So I'm excited to be here and to be able to discuss some fun stuff. It feels kind of like a reprieve, if you will. So we can sort of take this conversation anywhere that you want to go. As Alex said, I'm the CEO of Three Black Dot. We are a media entertainment studio, and we try our best to tell stories that are really resonant with youth culture. I think what makes us different is that we always sort of develop our ideas with a relationship to a community at the center. And then we give fans as many different opportunities to connect with each other and share in that experience in whatever format they sort of dictate. So whether it's merchandising, which we do in-house, or books or scripted series, theatrical, digital social first content, we do it all agnostic of medium. And I think what really animates us as a company and gets us really excited about, just our current state of play as sort of humans and people who are trying to kind of add value to the world, is really partnering with creators, specifically in the gaming space, to build, kind of these sort of new social first narratives. A couple of them you mentioned, like Gaming While Black and Alpha Betas. That's really kind of at the core of our work right now. We get really excited to partner with creators to kind of stand up those properties.
Thanks, Reggie. I'm so excited to dig in on all of that. But as you guys see, I think before we get started, we're going to run a quick poll for the audience. And then a little bit later during the conversation, I'll get back to you guys with the answer. So our question is, what percentage of 14 to 24-year-olds are weekly gamers? So yeah, please feel free to answer the poll on your screen. We'll be coming back to you with the answer shortly.
I take that over.
Do you know the answer? You feel confident, Reggie?
I'm just saying, like, I think everyone's gonna lowball this, so I take the over. No matter what the answer is, I take the over. Or what no matter what people come up with, I take the over.
Well, listen, I happen to know the answer, but I'm gonna hold off on saying it for a little bit because that would be no fun. And in the meantime, while people say their answers and speculate a little bit, why don't we dive right into this topic of gaming in the attention economy? I think this topic is perfect for you and for Three Black Dot, because I think you guys are really kind of at the cross section of what I see as really kind of a convergence between viewing behaviors of just like the media consumption audience in general, and the gaming audience, and also just a massive growth of the gaming audience that is sparked by things like the COVID pandemic, but I think really was underway even before March 2020. So, I mean, I guess kind of my first question to you is, what are your observations about the changing the consumption habits of gamers, and also maybe this is a little bit of a sneak preview of the answer to our poll question, but what have you seen in terms of the changing demographics of the gaming audience as well over the last years?
Yeah, I mean, I think that is a great launching point, because it's probably the the biggest, people outside in, like, looking at gaming. It's the best place to start, which is to understand, and I'm specifically around Gen Z, and I think that's where the poll is sort of asking. They've already declared gaming the winner in terms of the predominant medium for entertainment. And so the fact that gaming, sort of outstrips movies and television and outstrips music and all of these other modes of entertainment that books that sort of previous generations had held as their preference is the best launching point to sort of understand a lot of the other things that's happening both in gaming and around gaming. And so I think that choice in terms of as that declaration of clear preference, what we see and what we get sort of really excited about is that it just has a influence on all of their digital behaviors. And so we spend a lot of time trying to understand, okay, we're not a video game studio in terms of like we're trying to come up with the next League of Legends or we're trying to come up with the next Call of Duty. There are companies out there that are, much better placed to do that than us. We're thinking about, okay, you've already decided that you want to spend X amount of time playing these games. We know that entertainment experience is far different than anything that's come before it. How is that going to impact, your sense of self? How is that going to impact the rest of your digital behaviors? How are those attitudes going to show up in everything that you do around your gameplay experience? And then that way we don't have to spend a ton of time trying to like either intrude into that gameplay experience or replicate that gameplay experience. And I think that's where, kind of a lot of outsiders kind of tend to miss the mark. Gaming is sort of the driver of culture at this point in time. And it's the driver of, I look at and tend to sort of analyze a lot of things that happen, just in life around, whether it's memes or whether it's, kind of what we saw going on with GameStop or, kind of what's transpiring and kind of some of these decentralized crypto communities or some of the metaverse aspirations, and we see all of these things really rooted in sort of experiences and dynamics that grew out of gaming. And so I think that the famous quote of like software is eating the world, I think gaming is really eating the world. And trying to understand that in the way that it's showing up is going to be very, very important, not just to people who are, trying to sort of not just to people that are endemic to gaming, but I think in general, just as a matter of like our existence and the way that shows up in politics and the way it shows up in certainly entertainment, but and a lot of other forms as well.
Yeah, I mean, you said, gaming is eating the world, and I agree. I would actually, we talked about the metaverse a little bit. I would go as far as to say that gaming is becoming the world,
Yeah.
more than eating it, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And I guess before I dive even further into that, I do want to acknowledge the poll results of our question. So the results are in. Yeah, just to remind you guys, the question was what percentage of 14 to 24-year-olds are weekly gamers? And the answer is 75%. So first of all, I do want to say 40% of you guys got that right, which is pretty impressive. 20% of the audience said 50%. Another 20% guessed 25%. And then another 20% actually went whole hog and said 100% of 14 to 24-year-olds are weekly gamers. So I don't know, Reggie, how does that line up with what you would have anticipated?
Yeah, I mean, the 20% that said 100% is really surprising to me, because that's it's hard to beat. 75% is the answer, so it's hard to sort of be more more bullish on gaming than that. Those people, I think, are probably that's probably closer to the reality. I mean, not to go sort of too abstract from that, but when you think about especially during COVID and kind of our lives during COVID, a lot of our behaviors are essentially sort of gamified. We are talking to each other in screens. We're much more used to kind of figuring out kind of in solving whether it's work problems or sort of social problems through sort of virtual interaction, things like polls and trying to figure out, kind of how to make decisions in distributed environments. All of that stuff kind of has the sort of touch of gaming. I think as a CEO of a company, I'm trying to figure out like, how do I, how do I take this distributed environment, and since it's so analogous to gaming, like how do I, maybe gamify, our experience a little bit more, as in a work environment, so that we just remain engaged and fresh. And so, maybe 100% by the right definition isn't the wrong way, isn't a bad guess.
My theory is that the 20% that said 100% heard you say that you were taking the over, and they were like spitefully like, we're gonna make that impossible
Right,
for you to
right,
take that.
right, right, right.
Um,
They're smart
so
bags.
anyway, but listen, I mean, so you got a little, you're getting a little philosophical here, and I'm just gonna grab the bull by the horns and run with it, because I think you're so right about the gamification of everything around us, and the fundamental question that I think is becoming more and more pressing is like, what exactly does it mean for something to be a game, right?
Right.
We're seeing so-called metaverse platforms like Fortnite start to grapple with this. I think
Mhm.
when Fortnite came out a few years ago, everyone thought of it as a game. Like, it would have been ridiculous to say that Fortnite is not a video game. Now, I think if you ask a lot of people at Epic Games, they, executives at Epic Games, they would push back on that, and they would say it's
Yeah,
a platform. It's
yeah,
not a
yeah,
game. And same thing with Roblox, for
yeah,
example. These are gamified experiences, but like the way that people are thinking about them, they're also just like life experiences,
yeah,
and just
yeah,
platforms that people can use to live their lives. And so, I think like what you were saying with that 100% figure not necessarily being correct. Like, I would say, I'm not fully convinced yet. Like, I would say 25% of 14 to 24-year-olds probably aren't doing anything. Like, that stat is probably correct. But I think in like 5 or 10 years, I think you're right. I think it will be 100%, at least based on how we currently perceive the act of gaming.
yeah,
I think so many people are just going to be spending their time inside platforms like Horizon Workrooms.
yeah,
That's Meta's new
yeah.
co-working metaverse platform. But will that experience be that different from operating an avatar in Fortnite? I don't know. So
Yeah, I
I
mean,
think
I
you're right.
think that's when you think about the opportunity to really kind of bring in those game dynamics, when you talk about how tightly can you sort of organize around sort of a central mission. What are the appropriate sort of feedback loops and the appropriate incentives. How do people sort of collaborate? What are the rewards? What are the sort of customs? When you sort of take away or just kind of put all of that in the video game universe and then extend that to just us working and living, you can very easily see the sort of kind of the carbon copy, if you will. You can see a lot of those dynamics being placed on a lot broader experiences, and that having this sort of fundamental sort of disruption on our relationship to a lot of things that we thought was like really, really solid. And I don't think all of them are going to be, all of the outcomes aren't necessarily going to be positive. I do think that it's going to be disruptive. I don't think that this is going to be a linear thing where we wake up 5 years from now, and we're spending, 90% of our day, our waking hours in the metaverse. I don't think that's it, but I do think that there's an evolution that's taking place, that's going to cause us to just reevaluate our relationship to a lot of things, and that opportunity, because it doesn't happen so often. I think for people in the creative space, or people that are kind of in industry, or businesses, or even journalism, like that's really exciting, right? Because it means that we're living at a sort of really pivotal moment, where we get to see some things, to see some really big shifts.
Yeah, I'm telling you, I feel like such a shill saying this, so I'm just going to preface this by saying I'm not getting paid by Facebook to say this, but I did just try out an Oculus for the first time, and like,
Oh man.
that's so cool, man. It's so cool. Like, it was like the first time I used an iPhone, or the first time I used like a Nintendo Wii with motion controls, where I was
Yeah.
just like, oh my God, technology is capable of so much more than I realized, you know?
Yeah, I feel like
So,
this is gonna feel like probably a little bit too rare, but I spent not this weekend, the 2 weekends ago, I spent an inordinate amount of time in the Oculus 2. Facebook is not paying me to say this, but I was blown away at how
Very cool.
far at how far VR has come. We've experimented. We've been around VR for a long time, and we've seen the evolution. Oculus 2 is a really great entertainment experience. It's not Metaverse, but it's a really great entertainment experience as it currently sits. So it really does get your mind to thinking, kind of what are the extensions, or how far off are we, or, why is everyone talking about this, in this current moment?
So with all that in mind, and I know you were very upfront that at three Black Dot you guys are still figuring this out, but I'm going to put you on the spot a little bit and ask, what are you guys doing to both make your content more interactive and more gamey in a way that speaks to the gaming audience, and also potentially bring in interactive features like VR and things like that?
Yeah, I mean, I think it starts with I think it starts with, from a content perspective, it's really, I would sort of deconstruct our content a little bit and say what we're really trying to get right, and what we think is really important about creating content, and as a studio and creating content in today's day and age, is just understanding where kind of what the consumer is going through. And so, if content can no longer be just one-sided, play out, it has to really be about community, and communities start with individuals. And so we spend a lot of time thinking about, what does it mean if you're a gamer, but you're experiencing a transition into adulthood, and you're hearing all of these things about the independent creator, and you're hearing about the metaverse, and you're hearing about Web3 and NFTs and crypto and all of these things that sort of really stoked your, maybe some of your entrepreneurial ambitions. You have a great deal of ambiguity about college, and if that's the right path for you. How do you actually make your sort of self-employed dreams happen? Kind of what are the appropriate rewards and incentives that will sort of motivate you along the way? I think all of these things are sort of really, really big questions that sort of young people and Gen Z and sort of youth culture at large are sort of grappling with, right? And so when we think about sort of programming, or we think about partnership with creators, or we think about actually engaging and talking to that audience, before you start talking about a medium of exploitation, or a medium of sort of translation, it's really sort of understanding how, what an individual may be going through, and for us, a lot of times it then goes into, well, we know that individual, like I said at the top of this, has chosen gaming. And so they're going to bring gaming with them throughout that entire journey. And so now, if we're talking to them and we're sort of wanting to build community with them, we need to understand all of those sort of emotional check-ins and all of those emotional touch points. And once we tap into that, then it's everywhere they want to be. It's like, how do we communicate that same, emotional, hey, you tap into alpha betas, or you tap into a gaming while Black, so that you can feel like a sense of relief from all of this angst and anxiety that we know is really sort of, kind of weighing on you right now. Okay, great. Where does alpha betas live? Well, we want to be able to communicate that in any medium that you are. And so, the question would be like, in VR, how do we translate an alpha betas type experience, or how do we translate a gaming while Black experience, to make sure that we're still in VR communicating and sort of expressing those same sort of emotions that people come to us for, or come to one of those properties for. And so that's kind of how we think about kind of our sort of all-weather strategy. Sometimes that may take us back to a more sort of analog world. It may take us back to like a physical book, because that's the best way to sort of, kind of translate that sort of emotional connectivity. I say all that to say is like, for us, our true north is always going to be like building that intimacy with that single person. And then once we build that intimacy, and that community, we don't ever want to be sort of dogmatic about like, oh, it only lives here. That I think companies that are sort of locked into, and sort of dogmatic about a singular expression or a singular distribution point are fighting an uphill battle. I'll say it that way.
So, we talk about the importance of community in this landscape, but also Three Black Dot is very upfront about being an influencer-driven studio.
Yeah.
So could you?
Yeah.
I know this is kind of general, but could you give me your thoughts on the role of creators and influencers in building community in these spaces?
Yeah. We don't say influencer. We don't say influencers. We stopped saying that like 3 years ago. That was the okay thing to say. Like we stopped saying it. Really, I remember I was having an exec meeting. I walked into the exec meeting like 3 years ago, and I was like, I don't want anyone to say influencer anymore, because it just really shortchanges what these communities are about. Like people are showing up, not in some cases, maybe it's explicit, they're showing up to be influenced, but people are showing up for a whole host of other reasons, and sort of being influenced to make a decision about something is usually not one of them. They are showing up first and foremost for community. And so, creator, I think does sort of more appropriately for this moment, more appropriately sort of grab and sort of as a label for the types of people that we like to work with. For us, once we come up, we do a lot of ideation about, what needs are being expressed or communicated that are not being met by some audience or some person. And like I said, that intimacy drives us to being, kind of as specific as possible. And once we get a really, really good sense for kind of what that need is, we know that we're never going to be the best person or the best place to go and address that need. People do a really, really good job of choosing, more or less democratically, who are going to be the sort of, kind of the totem poles or the focal points for those communities. And what we like to do is just say like, hey, we have an idea. There's this thing that we think is missing, or we think that people are sort of wanting for. Would you like to partner with us in order to sort of help us articulate this idea? And that's where creators come in. I think for us, we tend to look at creators on sort of one end of the sort of, kind of, the one end of the spectrum of like being, kind of the sort of most important and sort of chosen kind of group. And we look at sort of community on the other end of the spectrum. And I think everything else in the middle, including companies like ours, if you don't have alignment with both of those ends, it's going to be a very, very sort of difficult road. And so instead of us being sort of the most forward of like, hey, we've come up with this, this great concept and we're going to go and sort of produce it on our own, or we're going to, kind of hire some general celebrity to sort of come in because we know they have mass appeal and, they can pretend to be this person, to play this role, to speak to this person. We tend to go directly to the creators and say, hey, would you like to partner with us on this?
Could you, I'm just kind of want to give you an opportunity to talk a little bit about the specific creators you brought on for things like Alpha Betas. I mean, I know Alpha Beta specifically is such a creator driven, series piece of content. So I don't know. I mean, just wanted to be, I guess.
Yeah, no.
I
think
give you a chance to,
and like Alpha Betas is a scripted animated show, and we premiered it in March on YouTube. we developed that show for over a year in partnership with four of the biggest gaming creators. And for those that are sort of in the industry, basically I do work. Wildcat, Terrorizer, and Vanos Gaming are four partners in that. And for us, it was more about, hey, if I were to just objectively step back and say, like, who are from, whether it's acting or directing or editing or scoring or what, that whole sort of gamut of what it takes to create a piece of content, who are some of the most successful people, bar none, at doing that, right? Objectively, I would say, wait, these creators, they show up 3 or 4 days a week, producing content that's between 20 and 40 minutes in length, right? And there's a scoreboard that's right there that says how many people have watched it each and every time out. Who has that type of pressure? I mean, that's that and to score well on that every single time, your audience, your community is basically voting on how much sort of affinity they want to express to your content. That's a massive amount of pressure. To be able to do that successfully over 4 years' time, or even 3 or 2 years' time, is a monumental achievement. And so, we looked at that and we said, okay, animation, we know, is a very, very expensive medium. But if we're going to hand over and give anyone the opportunity to sort of animate in this sort of timeless, kind of ageless medium, it should be those guys. How come they're not getting the opportunity to be the writers and the directors and kind of on these types of projects? And so as a company, we went and we partnered with those four creators to create Alpha Betas. And we're so excited to be, we released the pilot in March. Over 6 million people watched it. I think it was 250,000 people showed up day and date and time to watch it.
Awesome.
To watch it all together, which people say is sort of that you can't get people to show up day and date for stuff that's on YouTube, a VOD platform. People were so excited. That community has been so excited about it, and our partners in it. We partnered with Starburns, who's the studio behind Rick and Morty. So they brought that sort of network quality animation style that really has sort of that really speaks to a wide audience. And they're in the room, they're in the writer's room, and they're breaking ideas and cracking episodes. Episode 1 is going to be about this, all the way through, episode 4 is going to be about this. And they're naturals at it because it's what they do on a day-to-day basis. And they understand that audience better than anyone. And so that's the type of thing that I think, when you're a company and you're seeking that alignment, like we're always constantly seeking that alignment and seeking and thinking about how we bring value to this ecosystem that we operate in. That's the sort of thing that I think, we're sort of uniquely positioned to orchestrate, and, will increasingly be a part of our role going forward.
And I think things like Alpha Betas really are the perfect illustration of that, and all of the forces that we've been discussing today. But in the interest of wrapping this up, I am going to put a pin in it right there. I know. I feel like I could talk to you forever, Reggie, but we're at 30-minute mark. Yeah. I just want to make sure we have time to get through the audience's questions. Sorry, I interrupted you.
No, I said let's take questions. That's great. I don't.
Awesome. So I'm looking at these, and most of them are for you. So I'm gonna go for I'm gonna answer the first one. I'll take a stab at it if you don't mind, and then I'll just kind of chip it over to you because I think these are mostly for you. Our first question is from Ken, who asked, what do you think the future looks like for the gaming community? Do you guys think we'll see a whole generation of 40-year-old weekly dad gamers in a few decades? So I'm just going to take a quick stab at this because this is the only one of the questions that I think I have a good answer to. And
go for it.
My answer is, I mean, Yeah, like the basic answer is yes. We'll see a whole generation of 40-year-old weekly dad gamers in a few decades. The thing is, like, we won't think of them as gamers, or we won't think of them as like the gaming community. Like right now, there's a whole generation of 40-year-old dads who watch sports every week. But do you think of them as the sports community? I mean, for some of them who are really into it, yes. But for most of them, it's just like a fun. It's like a basic activity. It's like a fundamental building block of their entertainment diet, and it's just like a part of their life. And just like that, I think games will just become like one of the main pillars of entertainment, and it'll just be part of people's lives. So like, yeah, we'll see a whole generation of 40-year-old weekly dad gamers, but like they'll be playing games with their kids, and they won't just be dads, they'll be moms as well. And actually they'll just be people playing games, and everyone will be playing games. So like my answer is yes, but like that, those 40-year-old dads will just be part of a much bigger phenomenon. Sorry, but
No, no,
I'll let you take it away, Reggie.
no. I don't have anything. You're spot on. I couldn't agree more.
Well, let's the next one is definitely for you. So I'll our next question is from Pete, who asked, "What was the inspiration for gaming while black?"
Pete, great question. As a black CEO, the inspiration was really, we're going through 2020, and I was thinking about just if we were to just simplify it to sort of representation, we know gaming is ubiquitous. I mean, we started off by saying 75% of youth culture are weekly gamers. That cuts clear across every demographic. Um, and I started to think about, from a representation standpoint, how many people think about how many people, when you think about either games themselves or when you think about creators, or kind of any facet of this economy, how often do you think about kind of black people? How often do you think about the way that sort of black culture may show up? And and the answer to myself was far too little, far too seldom. Even though we know it's just as much a part of culture and sort of the behaviors as any other culture. And so, I actually felt pretty ashamed that I was in this seat to sort of shed more light on that, because at the end of the day, everything we do is really about belonging. I want to give the youth a place where they can either tune in or they can physically go to, or a t-shirt that they can wear where they can feel a sense of belonging. And I think if we're not sort of very intentional about belonging and, people's experiences, and making sure that, everyone feels a sense of belonging, I think that's how sort of replicate some of the inequities that we get when sort of the infrastructure itself is sort of democratic or meritocratic, or has no bias, and then suddenly the expression of it, or the sort of manifestation of it, suddenly has all these characteristics that I think we'd rather sort of not see as a society, or as a people. So gaming while black just came out of like, okay, something needs to be done. Let's make sure that whether it's education or access to information, or access to these types of platforms, access to brand dollars that really sort of underpin and fuel this economy, broader exposure to really build and strengthen communities. If you're a creator in this space, let's make sure if there's anything that we can do to sort of level those things, to create more equality, more equity in the space. Let's tackle that as well. And it hasn't been easy. It's never sort of a kind of an easy conversation if you're talking to platforms or brand dollars. Even if you're sort of looking out in the world and you're trying to find creators to partner with, and you realize they're hard to find, you have to sort of rebuild the entire ecosystem, not just from what's shown as content. Every single bit of of that stack needed some work, it needed some investment, needed some time. And so gaming while black, I think, while on the surface it's a content experience, our ambition is to really create it, to create a community, and to create an ecosystem that brings a lot more equity to and puts a spotlight and, hopefully at not only sort of gives people a sense of belonging, but, at the kind of its highest form or its fullest form, hopefully it'll inspire people who didn't think, this world or this universe or the ability to be a creator or the ability to be a director or a community manager or an editor, that didn't think that was possible for them. That didn't think that they sort of played a role in it. And so that's what we're doing with Gaming While Black. I couldn't be more proud of that property. And we're sort of in the lab right now looking at what cycle 2 of that looks like. We've had a great brand sponsor to help us bring it to fruition in Doritos. They've been phenomenal partners. And so that's one where I think it's, I don't even know whether it's a bottom line or you measure by, the impact, the good that you've done for across as many different stakeholders. I forgot what the exact term is, but that's one that definitely sort of checks all the boxes for us as a company. And that's why we put so much time and energy, I think, and passion into that, because it really hits where we feel like we have the greatest opportunity to make a difference.
I love that, Reggie. So our next question is from Tina. She asked, well, first she said, "I love what you do." She must be talking to you, Reggie. She said, "How can I connect with you and learn more?"
Yeah, you can connect. I'm easy to find. I'm Reggie, as it's spelled on the screen, at 3blackdot.com. I have all of our best ideas as a company has come from either being able to hire people who are incredibly tapped in to this culture and kind of understand where it's going, or they've come from partners who've been willing to bring us some of their best or most inventive work and say, hey, I think if I partner with you, I think I can sort of articulate this at a higher level. So I'm easy to find, and I respond to email, and I'm happy for anybody who thinks that they can add something to what we're building here, to partner up. I think that's our ethos, that's our spirit. We don't create from a place of like God-given ability, it's not like divined from anywhere. We really create from a place of kind of people bringing their experience to the table and us figuring out, how we can express and articulate that.
Awesome. So our fourth audience question is from Piper. Piper asked, this is a juicy one. So what is so special about the metaverse, and how do you think it will have a practical impact on how we interact with the digital world? What considerations should we build into that world if it becomes more of a day-to-day interaction?
My concerns about the metaverse is what impact will it have on how we interact with the physical world. It's sort of clear if you read what people think the sort of the sort of possibilities for the metaverse. You can see kind of what people are angling at, right? At some point, the sort of technology and the hardware will get sort of light enough where it can potentially replace our phone, whether it's a contact lens or a set of glasses, or whatever it is, where we can just jump into this other universe very, very easily, and live our lives there, or sort of create experiences there. My question about the metaverse, and something that I spent a lot of time thinking about, is just like when we have the opportunity to, when we have the opportunity for representation of, something like other than ourselves, right? We can create our avatar. We can be somebody completely different. I think there's lots of benefits to that, right? I think there's lots of benefits to, potentially being someone, different on Twitter or YouTube or Facebook than you are in real life. Like, I think there's lots of opportunity and benefits to that. But when we make it so that sort of becomes, our place for relief, or our place of kind of where we check out and we escape the real world. And that becomes, as we talked about, it starts to give you sort of all of those rewards, and it starts to, kind of be the sort of central place of community, maybe the central place of belonging. Our avatar doesn't replace us. And so we still have a lot of kind of bio feelings. And so if, what is it going to look like to go between these two experiences back and forth? Like what happens when the behaviors and the way that we're treated as an avatar are more pleasant than the behaviors and the way that we're treated as people? Kind of what happens when the dopamine or, sort of the payoff from the metaverse is sort of strong enough that it sort of replaces, or kind of replaces, not even replaces, where it just becomes a substitute for some of the things that are unpleasant in the real world. And I think we start to see, when we look at sort of social media and how sort of Web 2.0 and a lot of those things like really started to become more and more important to us in terms of experiences, and how that those social experiences, social platforms became ubiquitous. We start to see and kind of know that it's possible that we can get there, if not sort of inevitable, if the technology permits it. But then, we still need to feel good about ourselves and our sort of physical experience. And so, what happens when those things are incongruous? So I know I'm answering a question with a question, but that's something that I don't have a great answer for, but I'm really, really, I think we all need to be intentional about sort of grappling with that before we just go, sort of head first into a world that that could potentially be of sort of someone else's design that doesn't necessarily reflect any of the sort of democratic principles that we sort of cherish and kind of hold on to.
I love that answer, Reggie, or should I say that question? So for our final audience question, I think we're going to bring up Adam Jenkins to the stage. Welcome, Adam.
Well, hi guys, I'm Adam. I'm a senior creative strategist outside the Edmond, London office. When the guys asked me, do you want to jump on this call with Reggie? I was like, absolutely. The question I have, Reggie, for you is, you've obviously seen kind of creators who started 5 years ago become huge and move out of content creation. But there are obviously creators starting now where content creation has become a business model, right? You've got companies like Elgato selling the dream to kind of content creators and how to get big. So in your opinion, what social platforms or ecosystems are essential for building a community that will support a new creator?
Yeah, I think that's a great question, Adam, because it is shifting and sort of changing. I think what's most important for a creator, any creator nowadays, is to realize, and you talk about selling the dream, is that this idea, and you'll hear it everywhere, this idea of like the independent creator, this idea of like the lone creator that has amassed millions of community, and it is a myth, right? Every creator that we work with, I mean, I'm not saying you don't start off that way, but every creator that we work with, there's a massive amount of energy, and usually people helping that become possible. Whether it's editors, whether it's a team of assistants, whether it's people who are sort of kind of business savvy and kind of looking out in sort of those areas, whether it's connecting with sort of first and foremost is connecting with the community of sort of like-minded creators where you can sort of reinforce each other and support each other. So don't think that the archetype is this sort of independent creator, this one person band that does everything, and they're able to kind of make the magic happen. It doesn't exist that way now, and I doubt that it'll ever get to a point where it'll exist that way in the future. I think in terms of like social platforms and tools, it's just I think I think a creator should also, should always be mindful of anybody, whether it's platform or not, that's like standing between you and your community, right? Like there are questions that you should ask of any platform, of any tool, whether that's whether that's lock-in, what type of contract am I signing? Is my community portable? What type of direct access can I have with them? What type of information is shared with me? I think the sort of wave of decentralization, the wave of like really a creator maintaining intimacy and that community being specifically there to support that creator, or specifically there to sort of rally around that creator and connect with each other and connect with other people out of a sense of common interest. I think that is definitely the sort of archetype for sure. And you really want, as a creator, to have the least amount of friction in terms of that being able to take place. And so, I think we do a good job in terms of companies like ours that sort of can help facilitate that. But I think in any partnership, you should be asking, the fundamental question is, who's standing between me and my community, and am I okay with that?
Yeah, I think that's why you're seeing a lot of creators are moving to things like dedicated subreddits or Discords, because it's the path of least resistance to communicating and having that one-on-one relationship with the most of their community that they can have.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's, that is something that is, was born, is very much a learning that's come from gaming, right? Like Discord was a gaming platform. And to their credit, they said, hey, anybody can come here and start a server and, aggregate their community and speak one-to-one and give that community the opportunity to sort of speak to each other. And I think that's why it's been so successful as a platform and sort of as a tool. And I think those are for both companies and for creators, like those are the types of like first principles that we'll need to follow in this next wave of creator economy or whatever you want to call it.
Cool. Thank you.
Yeah. Thanks, Adam.
Awesome. Well, Reggie, honestly, it's such a pleasure to talk to you every time, man. Thank you so much for taking the time to speak to me about your thoughts on this topic. I know we went everywhere, but that's what I love about talking to you. So yeah, thank you so much for your time. And hope we get to continue this conversation sooner than later.
Me too. It was fun. Thank you, Alex.